All right. Thanks so much, Phil. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Highland, and I'm an alcoholic. And I have had the wonderful, beautiful gift of sobriety since April the 12th of 1990. And that's been just the most wonderful thing that's ever happened for me. And very grateful to be here tonight. My home group is called the Lambton Group. And my sponsor is a wonderful, wonderful man named Don M. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And, Phil said I could choose the topic. And if there was a topic I could choose, I guess as I'm getting older, I just turned 74 last Sunday, and I have 32 years of sobriety last April. That I really think that Alcoholics Anonymous someday, history will look back on it as one of the greatest love stories, of all times. And, more and more, I guess, as you get older, you recognize, what God's done for you and what he's done. He's put me right in the middle of the only thing I can call it sometimes is just this incredible love story. And so glad to be a part of this love story with you guys tonight. And, as I said, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I was born here in Louisville, Kentucky. My home group, as I said, is the Lambton Group. And I share with you, from the very beginning when I came in, like a lot of people, when I would go to an AA meeting, I would sit there and listen to what the speaker did that I didn't do. I was really kind of interested in that. So I would listen and you would be speaking and I would be thinking, well, I did that. I did that. Nope, I did not do that. Next night, next speaker, I did it. I did it. Nope, I did not do that. And I thought, if I get enough didn'ts, I'm out of here. I'm at a meeting about 3 weeks into it and a lady of all things is speaking. And everything this woman did, I did. And I'm sitting out there going, man, I did that and I did that. And oh man, I'm screwed. I did that too. But then right at the end of her talk, she said she used to carry a half pint in her bra. I said, well, I did not do that. And I was telling this old guy about it after the meeting. He said, sound like you're getting a little desperate there to me, kid. And, the deal was, I guess, when I showed up, I was trying to figure out what an alcoholic looked like. I mean, you guys said, well, kind of like you. I said, well, no. You know what I mean? I'm looking for a dirty old man in a raincoat. And you know what? That night at that meeting, there were no dirty old men in raincoats. It's just like tonight, I'm looking on this screen. I haven't seen a raincoat yet. A couple dirty old men, but no raincoats on here. And I listened to your stories, right? And the stories were all over the place. That's the wonderful variety of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what finally happened to me, and the reason I have to talk about this, because these three things have been part of my journey for the last 32 years. It seemed like no matter what your story was, you guys were talking about being restless, irritable, and discontent. You were talking about being apart from, not a part of, and you were talking about progressive patterns of dishonesty in your life. And man, I'm sitting there going, whoa, if that's got anything to do with what's wrong with me, I am in big trouble, because those three things have been part of my life from the get-go. Those three things I've actually fought with, as I said, right in the middle of AA for the last 32 years. Restless, irritable, and discontent. Our book talks about it. What is it? I don't know. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you I got it. I have had it for as long as I can remember. It's the most powerful thing I still hear in AA. You ask somebody, how's it going, man? And he goes, I don't know, man. I'm all screwed up. I'm all off center. Do you know? I go, yeah, I know, man. I know, because when I was 14 years old and I took a drink of alcohol, it took restless, irritable, and discontent away. And for the next 27 years, alcohol was going to be my solution for restless, irritable, and discontent. The other thing I heard you talk about was being apart from, not a part of. To this very day, I've been in this thing 32 years, and still there's a little part of me that will jump up and let me know, like tonight, Tim, you don't belong on this thing with these people. You don't even know who they are. They don't want to listen to you. There's a little voice that always wants to separate me. There's a little voice that always wants to drag me away from the crowd. I think that's the piece that kills a lot of alcoholics. We become just different enough. One day you turn around and say, hey, what happened to that Tim guy? He was a pretty good guy. I really say that because probably one of the most important things you all have told me was from the very beginning, Tim, keep coming back, son. Keep coming back. And Tim, come back regardless of how you feel, think, or believe. And that was huge because my feelings, thoughts, and beliefs were everything to me, you know. And thank God Alcoholics Anonymous didn't care about feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. You guys were only interested in me taking some definite actions. And you said, Tim, if you'll take those actions, your feelings, thoughts, and beliefs won't make much of a difference. And, I have to tell you, over 32 years, thank God for that, because about half the time I've been in AA, I thought it was the best thing God ever created. I loved all you people, and I knew it was going to work. The other half the time I've been here, I thought this is the dumbest thing God ever created. All these people are hypocrites. It's not going to work for a guy like me. As my sponsor likes to point out, Tim, no matter how you felt, it worked for you both ways. And thank God for that, because, even today, I have that restless, irritable, and discontent. I don't feel good about it. But I've learned if I take those concerted actions of prayer, sharing, and helping that you guys taught me from the very beginning, that I'm going to get through that day without taking a drink. And the last thing I heard you talking about was progressive patterns of dishonesty in your life. And that really jolted me, because one of the things I knew about myself was that I lied when the truth was good enough my whole life. And I was conscious of it. Like when I was a kid, I was a pretty good athlete. And if I scored 20 points in the game, came home, you'd say, how many points you score? I'd say 25. Got to be on the test. What'd you get? 10 B plus. I would not hesitate to add to the truth. And, I took a look at that, when I was doing my inventory. And I guess the deal was that somehow I intuitively thought or knew that the truth wasn't going to work for a guy like me. Somehow I had to get outside the truth and stay outside the truth if I wanted to drink the way I wanted to drink and live the way I wanted to live. And thank God that the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous were designed to help me find that truth, own that truth. I was about a little side story on that. I was about 3 months sober. I got home with my family, and I was sitting up watching the Late Show with my 13-year-old daughter. She couldn't sleep because she was 13, and I couldn't sleep because I was 3 months sober. About 1:45, she says to me, Dad, can I order a pizza? I said, oh, no, honey, don't do that. Your mother will go nuts. She said, oh, come on, Dad, let me. I said, all right, go ahead. So she ordered the pizza. About 1:15 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Here's the pizza man. Here come her mother flying out of the bedroom, yelling at my daughter, what are you doing getting a pizza at 1:15 in the morning? My daughter said, Dad said I could. My wife said, you say she could? I said, nope. And my daughter said, Dad, you are lying. I said, I do it all the time. And I say those three things: restless, irritable, and discontent, apart from, not a part of, and progressive patterns of dishonesty in my life. Because, what I know today that I didn't know when I showed up here 32 years ago is what I just described as this physical, mental, and spiritual malady called alcoholism, and everything that goes with it, right? The disease of body, of mind, and of soul. And I really need to say that because, it took me a while to understand that there were 12 steps for a reason. It took me a while to understand that just stopping drinking was not going to be the solution to what was wrong with me. And thank God, I think we have to be careful nowadays. I was surrounded by old guys when I came in that, they were the just don't drink guys, just don't drink. And don't get me wrong, thank God for those guys, because if I take a drink, as my sponsor Don talks about, I am powerless over alcohol, but I'm not powerless over my elbow. And I can't take that first drink. But as you'll hear a little bit of my story, my reluctance to get fully involved in all the steps were going to cause consequences, for me at 10 years sober, at 5 years sober. And it took me a while to understand that every step that they gave us over the 12 were there for a real reason. Anyway, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family here in Louisville. It wasn't if you were going to drink, it was when and how good were you going to do it, right? There was no doubt you were going to drink. And I remember I was the oldest of 7 kids. And my daddy was one of those drunks that if he didn't stop at the tavern before he got home, we knew what was coming through the door, right? You talk about restless, irritable, and discontent. But I'd be sitting at the kitchen table and I'd watch my dad come in with that look on his face like he's going to kill us all. But then he'd reach up and get that Yellowstone whiskey and he'd pop him a big old hit. Then he'd take a can of beer and knock it all the way back. But his head would go. And I'd be sitting there watching him go, whoa, I don't know what just happened there, but I'm in. I am in. I saw the ease and comfort, that came on his face when he took that drink. Guy told me one time, Tim, if you caught a buzz at 10 years old watching people drink, you're probably going to have a problem. The reason I say that is, no matter what I told you, I liked what it did for me. In fact, I took my first drink of alcohol when I was about 14 years old. And it was wonderful because, I was one of those kids, one of those teenagers that was totally out of sorts with just about everything. I grew too quick. I was tall, I had problems with the pimples. I had to wear glasses. I mean, it was just an awful time getting into the teenage life, and finding alcohol. It became the solution for what I thought was wrong with me. My inability to feel comfortable in my own skin, my inability to feel comfortable around you. And when I took that drink, I thought, well, God put this on earth for guys like me. That's as simple as it is. And I'm going to use it, and I'm going to run with it as long as I can. And I guess from 14 years old on, that was my focus. Thing I'll share about my personal life at that time, the gift that God had given me is I was a good athlete. In fact, in the state of Kentucky, if you can shoot a basketball through a hoop here, that's a big deal. And all I ever wanted to do was be a basketball player, get a scholarship to a Division I college. And my whole life was dedicated to that. And that happened for me. I became an all-city and all-state player. I got recruited by a lot of colleges. And sure enough, at the end of my senior year, I got recruited to Division I college, St. Louis University, to play basketball. And it was a big deal for my family because nobody had ever gone to college in my family, much less go with all this notoriety. And I left Louisville in 1966 in all my all-state glory, to follow my dream. What I'll tell you is alcohol moved up and jumped up in my life so quick that by the first game of my sophomore year, I showed up to that game so drunk that the other players had to hide me down on the end of the bench so they wouldn't throw me out of school. So this is like going to your favorite team, whoever that happens to be, Florida, Maryland, Virginia. On the end of the bench, one of the kids is drunk. And what happened that day was going to be something that's going to continue to happen over and over for many years. I was walking down the street after class. A guy said, hey, you want to get a drink? And I said, well, yeah. Yeah, I always said yeah, because I had a mind that would say something like, yeah, you'll be okay, Tim. You'll go have a couple beers, come back, get a nap, get up, take a shower, go to the game. You'll probably be the hero. That was my mind would say. 18 years old, I didn't know anything about a physical allergy or mental obsession. And I sure didn't know anything about phenomenon of craving. And if you'd have told me at 18 years old that the first drink was my problem, I would have told you were nuts. In fact, my story is for the next 27 years, I tried to find out where the cutoff point was. Where does a guy quit drinking where the consequences didn't come? And I don't know about you guys, but I never found the cutoff spot. Got to Alcoholics Anonymous, read the big book and the doctor's opinion, and went, oh my God, if this guy is right, if he is right about this allergy to alcohol, then it explains just a whole lot in my life that I never could have understood. I couldn't understand when everything in my mind wanted to be somewhere. When I wanted to be at my kid's Christmas place, and I swore I'd be there and I would miss it. When I wanted to be at my best friend's mother's funeral and told him I would be there and I would miss it. And if you're continually going against your own will, you're continually going against your own desires, it gets really confusing and it gets really heartbreaking. And when I read the doctor's opinion, I was like, oh my God, I never had any idea that the first drink would trigger something within me that would just carry me on drinking for a long time. And thank God for Dr. Silkworth. Thank God that he came to understand where the problem really resides. But anyway, in my young career there, my college basketball came to a career end. Obviously, I didn't play my senior year because I got hurt. The sad part about it is I didn't even care anymore. It had been the most important thing my whole life, but now I had found something that went right past everything, and that was alcohol. And once it went by the basketball, it was going to be real easy for it to go by everything else. My education, my career, my family, it was real easy because once it got to the top spot, there was no looking back. I had to graduate from college, however, in 1970. They basically said your grades are terrible, but you got to get out of here. Well, I didn't want to get out of there because in 1970 was not going real well. The Vietnam War was still really popping. 3 of my buddies already been brought home in body bags, and they had the draft lottery where they drew your birthday out of a hat to see when you're going. Well, I was number 6 out of 365. I made the top 10. I am going. And if you're a vet, I want to say to you, I wasn't going to run to Canada. I wasn't brought up that way, but it certainly wasn't high on my priority list. I want to tell you that. Now, there were 2 ways you could get out of the draft in 1970. You could get married. I thought, man, that's awful drastic. Or you could go to grad school, right? So I only had one choice. I had to go to grad school. So I came up with a plan. And I don't know if any of you remember when you came up with a plan for your life, and God was up there laughing his butt off, but you came up with a plan for your life. And here was the plan that went through my head, and I'm almost embarrassed to share it, but some of you are going to understand. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go take that test to get into law school. I'm going to pass that test. I'm going to get into law school. I'm going to graduate from law school. And someday I'm going to run for Congress, and someday President of the United States. You see, it's a short trip for me from street drunk to President of the United States. I can get there quick. Book talks about we may have a touch of grandiosity. I don't know. But anyway, I took the test. I got a terrible score on the LSAT test, and the law school turned me down. Now, as meager as it might sound to you all, it was a big deal in my life because if I didn't come up with a new plan, I was going to be over there shooting them up in Vietnam pretty quick. And it hits me. Tim, stop drinking. Stop drinking. Study for that test because you got the brains to get into law school, for God's sakes. For the next 5 weeks, I didn't drink a drop. It was awful, man. I got to get over the shakes. It was during the spring. People were out partying. I found this real smart guy down the hall, and he tutored me every day on how to take that test. So for 5 weeks, I gave it the best that God had in me. However, it came down to the day before the second test. For some reason, I decided it'd be a good idea to go out and have a couple beers so I could relax, come back, get a good night's sleep, take that test, pass that test, get into law school, Congress, President of the United States, same deal. I left on Friday afternoon for those 2 beers. I didn't get back to that campus till the following Tuesday. I found out later on I rode around St. Louis on a city bus about a day and a half. And I know today it's called a blackout. And I say that because when I got here, I did not know that word. I did not know what a blackout was. I did know. I used to start somewhere, end up somewhere else with a big old chunk of time going. I didn't think a whole lot about it. If that's happening in your life, you guys, that is not right. That is not normal. Somewhere in there, however, I guess I knew I was drunk and I wasn't going to take the test. And I went back to the dormitory. I found the real smart guy who tutored me. I gave him $20 to go take that test. And I'm not proud of that at all, but that's where I was. And he goes and takes the test in my name. I stayed drunk for 3 days. I even forgot he took the test. About 3 weeks later, we got the results of the test the guy took in my name. Guy got the highest score in the history of the law school. Wasn't very funny then, I'll tell you. I remember opening the envelope going, you idiot. God, look what you've done to me now, man. He doubled the score that I had gotten on the first one. And I knew I was screwed. And I went to the dean's office because I thought I better get to them before they get to me. And here I am, 23 years old, Mr. Allstate, Mr. Hero Child. 4 short years later, I'm standing in front of the dean of this law school, doing the only thing I learned how to do, was lie through my teeth. And I said, Dean, you're probably wondering the difference in those 2 scores. Hey, I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I let some other guy take the test. How did he do? As if I knew he didn't know. But what I wanted to share was, I don't know why this happened, but as I turned to leave that office that day, what went through my mind, it was crystal clear. Tim, you know the problem, man, it's the booze. The booze took the basketball of your life. The booze took the law school opportunity. You should be doing both of them right now, and you know it. For that moment, for some reason, I'll never forget it. I knew the truth. It just didn't last very long. I walked outside the office. There were two guys that I know. They said, "Hey, you want to go get a drink?" I said, "Yeah, I need a drink." That was 1970. It was going to be 20 years until I showed up into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I can tell you this, even in those 4 short years, those things that I would tell you that I want the most, I lost. I lost my integrity. I lost my confidence. I lost my security in myself. I lost my sense of purpose and who I was. And I say that because I've come to understand that, it takes our money, it takes our relationships, it takes our jobs, but it also takes that stuff deep down inside that I think we call moral fiber, or whatever you want to call it. And the reason I know that's true is that the last 32 years, you all have helped restore a sense of dignity in my life and a sense of purpose back in my life and some integrity in my life. And I'm so grateful for those things. And if you've been sober a while, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't been sober very long, hang on. You'll understand exactly what that's all about. So I have to creep back into Louisville after all that, and just told everybody at home I missed them. I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I just come on home. So I came on home, and I had to live with mom and dad because I didn't have a job. I had met my high school sweetheart, you all, when we were seniors in high school, and we dated for about 6 months. And then I took off to St. Louis. She stayed in Louisville for the next 4 years. It was one of those kind of love the one you're with type of things, right? And then I hadn't seen her for 8 months, before the law school debacle. And I was actually kind of really tight and dating another girl from Chicago. But anyway, I had no choice. I had to limp on home after the law school debacle. Living with mom and dad, and one night I'm out and I run into my high school girlfriend. Man, she looked good. She looked really good. And I stopped and talked to her. She was driving this little yellow sports car. And she told me about this great apartment she's living in. She told me about this great job she had. And I remember thinking, I think I'm falling in love here. God, I know I am. That was like in August of 1970. We got married in November of 1970. Didn't want to rush it, but we got married in November of 1970. Okay, let me go and jump onto this part. We got married in November of 1970. We got divorced for the first time in 1983. We got remarried in 1985. Got divorced again in 1987, but remarried in 1990 when I got sober. But then we got divorced again in 1995 when I was 5 years sober. Now, what's that all about? Well, as I can tell you now, it's all about is alcohol and alcoholism and everything that goes with them. I love him. I hate him. I hate him. I love him. He's good. He's bad. He's bad. He's good. If you don't know, there's a thing called alcoholism in the middle of any relationship, pretty much an impossible deal. And what you had there were two people actually cared for each other, had no idea what we were dealing with, drunk or sober. And that's why I have a big place in my heart for Al-Anon, because if there ever was a family disease, this is it, right? Everybody around us gets pretty crazy. Anyway, I did get a job. I got back to a little bit of teaching and coaching, and I had a degree and I'd played ball. So I got hired as the dean of students at an all-boys Catholic high school, which meant that school hired a drunk to be in charge of the discipline in their schools, what it meant. And anyway, many tough mornings, right? Many tough days, because my job was to check these kids in the morning, right? Back in the 70s. And most days I'd be there sitting there hungover. I want to tell you about this one particular day, and there's a reason. I was sitting there 7:30 in the morning, all hungover, big old tomato head, just trying to get to 8 o'clock. And this is during the 70s where all the kids were out in the parking lot hitting a few doobies, right, to get ready for class. And I look up this day, and this kid standing over me had that long hair we had back in the 70s. And he was just kind of floating over top of my desk like this. And all of a sudden he looked down and went, "Hey, Mr. Highland, you're looking bad, dude." And I don't remember what I said to him that day, but something like, "Hey, by God, I'm in charge here. Don't you forget that." The reason I like to share that particular day is that kid that said that to me back in 1974, this past July, or this coming July, next month, will celebrate 38 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. He's pretty much a multimillionaire, lives down in Destin, Florida, and he's just a wonderful member of AA. And I got to go down there a couple of years ago to speak, and he met me at the airplane with his kids. And he runs over to me and goes, "Hey, coach, listen, I ain't never told my kids now how it was." He said, "I'll make you a deal. You don't have to say anything about me. I won't say anything about you." And, one of the great joys of my sobriety, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, guess where a lot of those boys I tried to teach and coach in the 70s have showed up? Right in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've gotten to sponsor some of the same guys I tried to teach and coach back in the 70s. And if I go to a meeting of AA in the south end of town where the school was, invariably, I'll walk in the room and one of them will be there and they'll jump up and go, "Ha, we knew you'd be here." And I always go, "Yeah, and I knew you'd be here too, you little shit," But anyway, it's been a great healing for me in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I need to say that to you, is that God has given me a chance to redo and reheal most every area of my life that I torched so badly. And that's been one of them, because that whole 10 years I spent teaching and coaching is pretty ugly stuff. Showing up to parent teachers conference drunk, showing up coaching basketball games and having the referee actually come over and tell you to shut up because he knew you were drunk. I mean, just not very, very memorable things that you like to think about, but that's where I was. We got married in 1970. As I told you, we had 3 beautiful children. How about having your oldest son born on Christmas morning? And that was our gift, 1971, 9 a.m. I was supposed to be in the delivery room for that wonderful gift from God. And I missed the gift that morning. And not a Christmas goes by, that I don't think of that Christmas morning. That Christmas baby of mine turned 50 years old this past Christmas. And he's also been the toughest of men I've had. He was the one that got burnt the most because he was the oldest. And getting next to him has just been a tough thing. And I'll share this with you because it was so important to me. A lesson to learn in my early sobriety was that, I was about 6 months sober. And my son was getting ready to go off to college. And he said, "Dad, can I talk to you before I leave?" And of course, I'm 6 months sober. I immediately started thinking, yeah, I bet he wants to tell me how proud he is of me that I'm 6 months sober. That's probably it. We had our little meeting and he said, "Dad, there's only one thing I need to say to you." And I said, "What's that, son?" He said, "Dad, I hate you. I hate you, Dad. And let me tell you why. I hate you because all you think about is you, Dad. Even since you stopped drinking, Dad, all you think about is you. Bye." Wow. I mean, I was stunned. I thought, man, I'm 6 months sober and I'm taking a hit like this. This doesn't seem right. I made a bad mistake. I took it out to a bunch of old timers in AA. They were not kind. First guy said, "Tim, you drank for 27 years. You think you're getting credibility in 6 months?" I was like, "Well, yeah." My idea was, hey, everybody, let's call it even. And you know what? Nobody was interested in even. And you know why? It wasn't even. And you know what? It's still not even. And you know what? It'll never be even. You guys finally convinced me that it's going to be my job to add to those people's lives till they throw dirt in my face. And then the second old guy says to me, "Tim, you want credibility in your life?" I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Tim, here's how you're going to get it in AA. You're going to get it, Tim, one day at a time by not drinking and doing the next right thing." That doesn't even sound good to me now. One day at a time, that's a slow boat. 8 years sober. My Christmas baby was living in Seattle and he called me and he said, "Dad, I need your help." And he knew something was different at 8 years sober. He knew I actually listened to him when he talked to me. He actually knew I was helping people in AA. In 8 years sober, my credibility had gotten good enough that he was willing to come home and live with me for about 8-9 months. And that healing that you guys promised one day at a time started to take effect. And now here we are, 20 some odd years down the road. And I helped him start his business about 10 years ago. He's got a nice business here in Louisville. He's got 3 beautiful daughters, a set of twins and another little girl. And I do know this, he loves every moment, every second that those 3 little girls get to be with their pawpaws. And I guess I had to learn, the hard way, that our credibility only comes one day at a time. By not drinking, and also continue to practice those steps to learn how to be a father, how to be a friend, how to be a husband. I spent the last 6 months of my drinking, as it turned out, living in a guy's basement in the south end of Louisville. I got thrown out for the last time in 1989 by my most frequent wife, as I call her. And I ended up sleeping in this guy's basement. And I can't tell you anything miraculous happened there. I can tell you this. On April the 12th of 1990, I came into that house about 3 o'clock in the morning. The family I was living with was already asleep, of course. And as I remember it, I drank the last 3 beers the man had in his refrigerator. I watched ESPN go off the air. That's how long ago it was. And I remember having a feeling that I've never had since. In fact, I thought I was having a heart attack. I got all squeamish and prickly. And I remember thinking, I should go to the emergency room, but I didn't. I passed out. But I woke up again about 5 in the morning in my clothes. And I got up and I had that same crazy, crazy feeling. And I thought again, Tim, maybe you need to go to the emergency room. But I didn't. And I finally got up and headed toward the shower. About halfway to the shower, I just collapsed to my knees. And I just said, God, I am so lost. I don't know what to do. I have lost everything again. I've lost my wife again. I've lost my kids again. My business is on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't know what to do. And I got up and I went ahead and got my shower, and I went into my business. And my business, you guys, is usually very busy. People are in and out of my office all day. The phone never stops ringing. April 12th of 1990, I sat down at my desk at 7:45 in the morning, and I didn't move a muscle to 12:15. 4.5 hours. In that day, nobody ever came in the office, and the phone never rang one time. The only thing I could tell you as I sit there was something, all I could think about is it's over. The book talks about a moment of clarity. I don't know if I have a moment of clarity, but God created a space that day, that morning. And in that space, somehow I knew where my solution was. And I didn't even understand alcoholism. And that was my first meeting that I went to that day of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was a Thursday afternoon. And you guys, from that day until tonight, 32 plus years now, in all honesty, it's been one crazy journey, one crazy up and down all around life journey. I say that because when I was new, I was really hoping the sobriety thing was going to be about the absence of problems in little Timmy's life. And you guys said, oh, well, no, little Timmy, who told you that? Little Timmy, here's what sobriety is about. It's about, Tim, you get to be part of life. And Tim, you get to be there in body, mind, and in spirit. And when you said that, the bell went off. Because my wife used to say to me all the time, Tim, you're not even here when you're here. And I'd get so mad. I'd say, can't you see me? I'm sitting right here in this chair. And I didn't realize until I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which clearly tells me that I have a physical disease, an allergy, but I also have a mental obsession. And my disease, in a nutshell, is I'm either drinking, I'm thinking about drinking, or I'm thinking about me. And that didn't leave any room for anybody else. And I realized for the first time how debilitating and how consequential my disease could be, even when I didn't have the booze in me. When I lost my marriage at 5 years sober, that was awful. There was nothing funny about it. I thought I was doing everything, a guy 5 years sober should be doing. I was Mr. Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in meetings. I had one in my house. I had one in my home. In my office. I was devastated when she walked out on me. And for a long time, if right after that, if you'd have asked me, Tim, well, what happened there? I would have told you, oh, it's unfortunate. My wife, I've been in AA for 5 years, and I've been kind of growing spiritually like a weed. And my poor wife, she quit going to Al-Anon, and we just got separate. That was a story I would have told you. The truth is, my self-centeredness was no better than it ever had been, even when I was drinking. I still didn't pay attention to her life. Still didn't pay attention to what was going on in my home life. And I say that because, thank God that there are 12 steps. And that was when I was driven back to take a hard look at step 6 and step 7. And as an action step, get more involved in steps 10, 11, and 12. And, over the last 10 to 15 years, really driving hard into those steps, because I had basically gone through step 9 and I had basically put 10 and 11 on the sidelines. I did kind of a drive-by on 10 and 11. But the pain was so great, at 5 years sober, that, I was driven back to really get serious about those things. And I was finally starting to see how these defects of character were having significant consequences in my life. I'll share with you, I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and I didn't do it right. For the first 14 months, I didn't have a sponsor, didn't have a home group, and certainly I hadn't gotten near a step. And I was about as crazy angry as you could be. I had a lot of anger issues. If you'd approached me at 14 months sober and said, "Tim, how you doing?" I'd say, "Fine, you idiot, get away from me," and I was just a mess. And I was in a meeting one night, sitting next to this old guy, and he said, "See me after the meeting." So I see this old guy after the meeting. He said, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so angry?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "You know what? I can't even sleep at night, man. I'm just a mess. My head won't stop. It won't stop." And he told me something. He said, "Tim, here's what I want you to do. Go home tonight and lay down and just lay there and go, God is love. God is love. God is love." And, I still do that sometimes today. And that's how I went to sleep in early sobriety. But 14 months dry on the bone, God is love was not getting it done. And I thought, if I see that little sucker tonight and he tells me God is love one more time, I'm going to knock him out. I'm at it with this stuff. And sure enough, I called him, and sure enough, he said, "Tim, just remember, God is love." I said, "Damn it. I know that, man, but I'm so angry and I'm so depressed." And he actually started to chuckle. He went, "Good, good, 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 good." So what do you mean good? He said, "Tim, listen to this. In Alcoholics Anonymous, God is love, but love is action. God is love, steps 1, 2, and 3, your powerlessness is power. Steps 4 through 9, your simple responsibility to clean up the mess. Step 10 is the great refresher course every day. Step 11 hooks you up with your God. And step 12 hooks you up with us. What do you say, Tim? Are you ready?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am ready. Because I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to kill you, one or the other." And that was the day, you all, he sent me down to Lambton Baptist Church, and I became the coffee maker there on Wednesday morning. And that was the day that I found out, sometimes I think it's the greatest secret in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I found out where the fun is. The fun is in the middle. It's flat in the middle where people are doing the deal, man. They get there early, they stay late. They pick up the chairs, they give people rides home. They're in it. And those people are having fun. Those people were having a ball. It wasn't like the people that I was with out on the edges of Alcoholics Anonymous who were just halfway grumpy all the time. And from that day, I've never, ever wanted to get out of the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. The other thing I'll share with you while I have a few minutes here of time is that I'll talk to you about the decade of the 80s. I got sober in 1990. Well, I already told you about my marital issues, but the total deal in the 80s was I got divorced in 83, remarried in 85, divorced in 87, remarried in 90. I was engaged to 2 other women in between time. I was in 5 major car accidents. I was in a nut house 3 different times. I lived 14 different places. I had 12 different business partners. I got shot at and I got stabbed with a beer bottle. And I was thinking, well, this is going okay. It's going okay. I just need to make some adjustments here. Why is it we're always the last to know, man? I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I owed $250,000 to people who really wanted it back, and it really bothered me about it a lot. And I thought that was very unfortunate. I'm trying to get sober, and all I could think about was their money. My sponsor said, yeah, it's their money, Tim. And but anyway, this became a vital lesson for me because, again, that $250,000 that I owed was almost got me drunk, but it certainly kept me frozen in fear, because every day I'd come in and I would shuffle papers from one side to the other side, trying to think about one big deal to come up with $250,000, right? And by 10:30, I'd be back in my apartment, crawled up in a ball. I was complaining about this one night at a meeting, and this other old guy says to me, see me. I said, okay, I'll see you. So he says, what's your problem? I said, oh man, I'm about to go bankrupt and everybody's after the money and I don't know what to do. He said, well, wait a minute, tell me about your business. I said, well, what do you want to know? He said, just tell me about it. So, well, it opens at 8 o'clock. He said, good, Tim, be there at 8 o'clock. What's next? I said, I'll go on sales calls. He said, good, Tim, go on sales calls. What's next? I said, well, I'll go to lunch. He said, good, Tim, go to lunch and come back from lunch. I thought, that's a good point. What's next? I said, well, I come in and do my paperwork. What's next? I said, well, work's over at 4:45. He said, good, Tim, go home, have dinner with your family, go to your meeting, come home, say your prayers. And then he slammed me with the big one. He said, Tim, do the same thing the next day. I was like, wow, what a concept. You do that every day, huh? And what my sponsor, Don, has given that a name that that old guy told me is my job is to do the stitches and leave the patterns up to God. Simply do the stitches, Tim, and leave the patterns up to God. My problem with that, you guys, when I start thinking about stitching, I start thinking about what am I making here? Is it a hat? Is it a shirt? Is it pants? And when's it going to be done? He said, no, you just stitch and trust that God's patterns are going to be greater than you could ever know. And that's pretty much, if guys that I sponsored, Curtis has heard this and everybody has this. If I can get back to the next stitch in my daily life, which takes me to the now, because in the now is where I found God. And I found him there because that's the only place that he is. He wasn't behind me and he's not ahead of me. But when I have to take the next stitch, whatever it happens to be in AA or in my personal life or at home, I get hooked up with that power greater than myself. Let me share this with you real quickly. I had 3 beautiful children in marriage. You heard about the Christmas baby. My baby girl was her daddy's daughter, right? When she was a toddler, her first little phrase was, I'll do it myself. Her second little phrase was, you're not the boss to me. And I thought, oh man, here we go. And by the time she was 12 years old, I'm finding 6-packs in her backpack, half pints in her shoes. I'm getting her out of jail for shoplifting. All over. She drank just like her own man. And let me tell you about this kid, though. Beautiful, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, gifted athlete, gifted artist. Just about anything she did, she was good at. She got a scholarship to the Chicago Art Institute for her art. And we didn't see her much, but she was heavy into her drinking. She eventually went to the Second City, which is performing art, and took a road trip out to Los Angeles. And we hadn't seen her probably 2 or 3 years. I just knew she was living in her car with her dog in this, streets of Los Angeles on a liquid diet. And the problem with the liquid diet, she also had an eating disorder. And that's a bad combination, alcohol and an eating disorder. And just about 21 years ago, I guess, she came home. We hadn't seen her for 2 years, and it was a vision I'll never forget. My baby girl, her hair was all matted to her head. Her cheeks were collapsed. Her teeth were rotten out. She was so thin you could count her ribs through her t-shirt. What I remember most is looking her in the eyes and saying, honey, is there anything we can do to help you? And her snapping back with those alcoholic beady eyes of hers and saying, Dad, if there's anything I ever need, I'll call you. She left and she went back to Los Angeles, and I knew it was only going to be, a matter of time before we got a call. Sure enough, about 5 weeks later, I did get a call. The good news, it was her. The bad news, she was so weak by that time, she was whispering. And she said, Dad, what should I do? Now I want to tell you, I was 12 years sober. I help a lot of people. But when your baby girl, she's 3,000 miles away and you can't get to her, what went through my mind is, hey, Tim, what do you think about the A&A now, buddy? Good enough for her. What about those 12 steps you're always popping off about? Is it good enough for her? And here was the big one. Tim, what about that God of your understanding you think so much of? Is it good enough for your little girl? And I have to tell you, if you're a daddy, it wasn't good enough. All I could think about it, I'm getting on an airplane, I'm going out and getting that kid. But I didn't do that. For some reason, I said, honey, here's a man's phone number in AA in Los Angeles. I pray and hope you will call him. And you guys, I hung up that phone. I'm going to tell you, I bawled for hours. And I remember thinking, what you do, did you just kill your kid? Did you just kill your only daughter, Tim? But you know, the longer I sat there, what came to my mind, what you all have told me so many times, at any time, anywhere, somebody is reaching out, somebody needs help, that the hand of AA has always got to be there. And that phone number I gave her had to be the hand of AA. And she was either going to make that call or she wasn't. And that was totally out of my power. That was going to be between her and the God of her understanding. I'm very happy to report before we finish up here that she did make that call to a man who was 26 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll be forever grateful that that man that night didn't put her off, didn't tell her, honey, I'll have some woman call you tomorrow. Or honey, he didn't do that. He said, where are you and where can I get you? Because I really believe if he hasn't done that I have a different story to tell. And I'm very happy to say this coming July, next month, if she doesn't do anything crazy, we're going to go out to Los Angeles to help her celebrate her 20th anniversary in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, she's doing great. She sponsors a lot of women. She's in the performing arts. She does a lot of stand-up comedy, a lot of skit comedy, and she's just living a great life. So anytime, anywhere, you guys, that I'm asked to do something on Zoom or anywhere else, I've got a reason to do it. And I hope that I will suit up and show up, just like that gentleman did for my daughter many years ago. Thanks for having me tonight, you guys.